can see the camera and filming basics
Yep.
presentation. Okay, great. So, it was good talking to everyone this past week and a half between these, presentation sessions about storyboards, and it's really exciting to hear about everybody's projects and get started on that. And so everybody so far has been working, and we're working in Google Docs with the storyboard template that we looked at last week. If you weren't on the call last week, you can see, I'm going to show you the website, the URL again. We weren't able to successfully record it for some reason. The audio didn't work out, so I need to re-record it, but I haven't had time to do that. So the recording's not up there, but all the content is up there. Um, so you can go to the eOrganic site, and I'll show you that again, that URL in a minute, and check out all of the class 1 is all the 1.0 to 1.9 portion, and what we're going to go over today is the 2.0 to 2.9, and so all the content is up there, and hopefully the recording works this time, and I'll put it under 2.0, and you'll be able to watch the recording, or people that didn't attend the class will watch the recording. But it's a really good idea to go back to this eOrganic site and look at this, because since we're not streaming video while we're doing the GoToMeeting, we're just going through like a PowerPoint. There's a lot of examples and embedded video and some links that are a good idea to take a look at to make sure that you're getting all the information from the class. And I talked to a lot of you, I think I talked to everybody during the storyboard, when we're working on our storyboards, about going back and looking at like the Novik video and some other videos that had examples of things that we had talked about and working on with your videos. And then we'll do this again. So we'll have this class, and then next week we will have one-on-one portion sessions again, so that we can keep moving through your storyboards and get them done by the end of this class. Okay, so this today we're going to talk about cameras and filming basics and other types of equipment. And once again, we have Jeff Hino. Thankfully, he is here with us to help us out a lot, because he is an expert in this realm. And I did add some content that I didn't have in last year's class. When you go to the eOrganic site, there's the course content on the bottom, the Node 7345. That was content that he had developed and was on a blog, some really good information that he has shared elsewhere. I put links in and added content. So he is a learning technology leader at OSU, and has been helping us with this class, and expert advice on this. And he has said that it would be all right to contact him. So if you haven't contact him, to follow up later on, if you have questions about cameras that you're using or equipment or anything else like that, his email and his phone number are up here for you. And again, do you want to add anything to that, Jeff? I think he's on mute, so unless I hear something, we'll just assume no. For now,
Uh,
he's going to talk a little bit
no, that's
later. Go
fine.
ahead.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fine with the introduction. Thank you.
Okay. So again, the course content is at 7345, and hopefully everyone has been able to access that. If you haven't been able to access eOrganic, um, send me an email, and I will make sure that you do get access to that. So this is kind of the eOrganic, like behind the scenes, where we work on development of articles and content that's on our eOrganic website. And so you have to just have access to get in it. All of you guys will have approved access. If you haven't ever done it before, you might not just yet have access. So just let me know if you can't get in when you try to log in. But this is where all of our course content is. Okay, so the first thing is cameras, talking about cameras, and really what we've been trying to focus in on this class, and work when the people that we're working with um, and their projects are just working with what you already have. You possibly already have a sufficient device, and I think even since last year, just iPhones and smartphones have increasingly become just like would just improve so much more, that you can just very easily use your iPhone or a smartphone. I talk about iPhones a lot, I'm sorry, because that's what I know the most about, and they're quite popular, and it's what I have. And so this has become something that I've been using in the field quite a bit. fits in the back pocket. It's really easy to use. So I would say the first step is if you do have a smartphone and you haven't used it for video is in photos is to look at that and start to get more familiar with it and see if it would be sufficient for you to use in capturing video. Um, and you also might have a digital camera that has video capabilities that might be fairly good too. So testing those, so really just um, getting familiar with the equipment that you already have and seeing if that works for you. So testing your camera and your cell phone. Reading reviews and getting to know your extension communication people like Jeff, I think is a good idea. I gave a link to a couple of places where you could find reviews. This information changes quite a bit, so it might be a little bit old at this point, but you can just easily go to like PC World or other camera and technology sites, and they'll give you reviews on cameras. And so the things that I have learned that are the most important in looking for a camera is looking at for image stabilization, so it's not really shaky, and a good built-in microphone. We'll talk a little bit about using external mics. I actually don't have any experience usually using external mics very much because I just choose equipment that has good microphones already in it, and so that's what I've been using. So a couple of this is what I've heard from people about who's using what and the ones that people have liked. iPhones really like the 4. I have a 4S and then there's a 5 out. Those take really great videos, um, and they're pretty. They're very stable. You can get a lot of adapters for that. I'm going to talk about that in a couple minutes with lenses and tripod and that type of thing. Um, and the video quality is really good on these. Um, Someone had told me that they use a Kodak Z18. I don't know much about this, but that was one that people could take a look at. And
That
flip cam. Go ahead.
that's the ZI8,
Oh, okay.
Kodak ZI8, and the thing about the ZI8 is that unlike the flip camera, it does have an external microphone option. That's why it's sometimes preferred for over the flip.
Okay. Great. And the flip, a lot of people do have these, and I've used a couple of them. I used the one, the HD, and then also the older one. They don't make these anymore, but you can like buy them online pretty cheap. I think maybe for $50. Um, and I've had some problems with it picking up a lot of audio, like wind and that type of thing. It didn't work very well. The older one was not very stable, but the newer one, the HD one, was quite stable, and the visual image was really good. But the audio again, this is one that you should go back to the eOrganic site and take a look at under 2.1, I believe, just the camera, the first tab for camera. I did a video where I used the next one underneath it, which is the Canon PowerShot series. This is a camera that I take out with me to the field all the time. It was only about $125, and it works really well. And we took the same video interviewing a farmer doing some seeding or working with a piece of equipment. I think he was about to do seeding in a greenhouse and it was raining. And we took that video and then with the Canon, and we also at the same time took it with the flip cam, the HD, and the images looked. They both were pretty comparable. I actually think the flip HD camera took a better image, but you could barely even make out what the farmer was talking about with the flip cam because you heard so much of the rain. It was picking up so much of the sound of the rain on the greenhouse. But the Canon, you could hear it a little bit in the background, but it would not affect. You would use the video for sure. It wasn't something that really affected the quality that much. So just really taking a look at all of that when you're figuring out which type of camera to use. So this Canon PowerShot is one that I use a lot. I can throw it in my back pocket. It's really small. It takes really good macro. And I think that some people might care a lot about that. It's something that, when I'm taking pictures of thrips or I'm taking pictures of, late blight lesions or something, and I really want to get good, you know, photos of things up close. So macro is when you're very close to the subject and it's getting it in focus. So rather than zoom, which is you're far away and you're zooming in, which is not something that I use very often, but the macro capabilities in the Canon PowerShot are pretty amazing, I think, for being just this little point and shoot type of camera. But what I'm going to talk about in a couple slides is, and the iPhone now has and a lot of these smartphones have adapters that do macro, and the one that I bought for my iPhone is really great, and I'll tell you what that one's called. So now that was the only reason really that I was carrying the Canon with me. Also, I would carry my iPhone in one pocket and my Canon in the other, and the Canon was just for the close-up shots, but now I'm just carrying this little separate lens with me. And I know that people like the Panasonic Lumix, and I don't know much about that. And I don't know if Jeff, there's anything that you want to for cameras add to this list that you find that are particularly useful.
The You mentioned the DSLRs, and
Mm-hmm.
they are really starting to sweep a lot of the video folks from their traditional dedicated video cameras into these single lens, basically digital single lens reflex cameras that have, as you mentioned, really excellent video. And actually, given the ability to change lenses on them, that you can get a real cinematic depth of field, the kind of thing that's impossible to get with these cheaper cameras. So one of them that I have seen that gets a lot of attention and is reasonably accessible and price wise is the Canon Rebel T3i. I just put
Okay.
that in there. It I think it's probably about $600 for the body, possibly. And
Mm-hmm.
the only thing there is you're dealing with the idea of audio again. Sometimes it's a little as an add-on to these cameras. The microphones may not be very good, and you may end up with a bit of a Rube Goldberg sort of contraption hanging on your camera in order to be able to do some better audio. But if I were to buy a camera right now, I'd probably buy a DSLR.
Okay. And the Canon is an example of that. Yeah, I do I really do like that the effect of the depth of messing around with the depth of field. I think it adds a lot to just something visually and makes it just more professional looking. So I like that. Okay, great. Um, so yeah, like looking at, so one thing that I write about and when you look at the course content is like just some of the tests to perform when you're looking at your camera or potential cameras that you're going to use. If you have access to a few, like in your lab or something, you know which ones to use. Like taking videos indoors and outdoors, taking them with a tripod as well as handheld. Some of them are much more stable than others. Like I said, that original flip cam was really unstable. It was a lot of shakiness. So, you know, not that we suggest walking around very much with cameras, but taking a few, sometimes you are in a position where you have to take a couple of steps, just smoothly and taking a couple of steps, seeing how it deals with that. And then testing the sound quality, testing it by having someone, a subject, standing there and speaking and being, maybe 5 feet away from them, and then stepping back at that point, and then seeing at what point does the audio start to degrade. So really like looking at how much background noise it's picking up. So looking at the sound quality inside and outside and the stableness is something. There are two things that I think are issues that come up quite a bit for cameras. So just messing around with that and testing those things. And if possible, if you can go into, if you're actually shopping for a camera, going in and really spending some time, if they'll let you, with taking a look at using the camera, maybe bringing your laptop in, downloading those so that you can see what they look like afterward, and see what the quality is before making a decision on a camera. Okay, so a couple of accessories, and again, I'm going to ask probably Jeff to pipe in here. Some additional lenses are very useful for people. In the middle here is a zoom lens. This is something that I have not used very often at all, but the on the left-hand side here is the Olo clip, I believe it is. It's called OLL. Sorry, I'm taking a look at it here. Yeah, OLLOCLIP is just the name brand of the one that I have, and it's a three-in-one. This is a picture of it. It's a three-in-one lens. It does macro, which is really great and useful. At least I found that I really like to have a macro option on my camera so I can take those close-ups of insects and disease problems. And it does a wide, and it's that same one you just unscrew a little bit, and there's a wide angle lens that comes with that one, so you can get a much see much wider, which is great when you're taking photos of farms and just a little more dramatic images. I think wide angle and fitting more into that viewfinder. And then just for fun, I think that is pretty exciting, but I don't really use for work is a fisheye lens on the other side. So you get three in one. And then the Olo clip is about $70. There's a lot of different name brands of them. I think I've seen them as less as as little as $50, I believe. And make them for this one is particularly for the iPhone, but you can get them for other types of smartphones too. And that's worked really well for me. Um, and the importance of tripods. Tripods are really very useful, um, and you can mostly I just suggest getting one that I bought a used one. I just have a regular old school one that goes from the ground. You can make it shorter, but I don't have like a small tabletop kind of one that looks like that's what this one is in the middle. People like those, and for the extreme sports kind of person over here on the right hand side, there's a lot of them that like can attach to anything. So then you don't have to be concerned about like if the ground is wet or if it's unstable or something like that. You can just twirl this thing around a fence or something like that. But I just use an old school one and that I bought used at a camera shop, and I just really want to make sure that the swivel was smooth still. And so, because that's if you're going to do some panning or something going from one side of the field to the next, just having like a really smooth um, swivel that will go from one side to the other. So it just depends on what you are doing. I think for your tripod, for me, it's never an issue to have like a large tripod to truck around with me if I'm going out to a farm or something, but you might want to have something smaller if you're going to be, packing it out pretty far or something. I know people have asked me before about name brands or pieces of equipment that we recommend. So if anybody has any of those questions, it would be great to hear about those now. And if Jeff has anything to add to that, I see that I talked to Kathleen when we were talking about our storyboards, and I told her about that Olo lens, and she just said that she bought it, and it works for photo and video. I had only actually used it for photos, but that's good to know that it works for video too.
I just wanted to add a couple of minor things. If you are looking for the iPhone attached lenses, beware of the kind that attach magnetically. They tend to use some adhesive magnetic ring that goes around your lens, and then the lens attaches with a magnetic ring onto that. But I found that those adhesives don't stick, so the lens is constantly falling off. So these
Okay.
kinds that clamp on are much more useful. Also know that you can plug an external mic into an iPhone, or I imagine most smartphones, and be able to have a longer lavalier mic that extends out to your talent or your interviewee. Also remember that your iPads and other tablet computers are also great video platforms now. It's a little funny seeing somebody holding up a full-size iPad to take a video, but it does work, and you actually get a real good way to see what you're capturing on the screen. Lastly, in addition to some of the purchased items for stability, I'm not sure, Lane, if we're going to talk about this later, but in terms of how you hold the camera,
Mm-hmm.
you can create your own tripod, and we don't really have a picture of it here, but you can do that by basically resting your elbows on your abdomen, and then being able to basically build your own human tripod. rather than trying to hold the camera with your arms flailed out. And then you're going to naturally have problems with camera movement. Other things you can do is I pull up against the side of a nearby fence post or anything that's available that's solid and actually hold my camera down against it and try my best to frame the shot. And lastly, there's a pretty interesting technique for, again, for quick and dirty shooting with your, say, your smartphone. If you can attach a string or cord to your iPhone case or something, then that string had dropped, make it about 5 feet long, drop it down to the ground on the other end and stomp on it with your foot. And then keep the string taut as you hold the iPhone up to your eye. And you've got basically a pretty good stabilization system from the string. So some cheap but useful ways to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Olo clip that I have, it's a clamp kind of situation that goes on the iPhone, but I do have to take the case off. So if you have a protective case around it, that can be a problem. I just take the case off on those days that I'm gonna be going out to the field and doing a lot of photos and leave it off for that day. But that is something that does get in the way. It doesn't get bigger and smaller. Just it clamps specifically to the type of iPhone that you have. So when you order it, you say if you have a 5 or a 4 or whatever.
I have a quick question. This is Kathleen. Jeff, I had emailed Lane. We're going to buy a tripod for my organization, and would it be okay if I just emailed you what I'm looking at and had you tell me if it was okay? um,
Sure. Yeah, the biggest thing about tripods is, I mean, like anything, you can spend $50, you could spend $5,000. So the biggest part about a video tripod is how good of a fluid head does it have. That is a head that allows you to pan and zoom smoothly. And so that's the two parts. One is getting what we call the sticks, which are the legs of the tripod, and it's a platform with a screw in the bottom. But the next is getting the actual camera head. So yeah, sure. I'll be happy to look at what you are thinking.
okay, thank you.
And Jeff, do those, so you just buy like a simple adapter if you're going to use an iPhone or a smartphone for a traditional um, tripod, right? Because the tripod, the threading there is just a standard that goes on the bottom of like the old school SLR cameras, but you just get an adapter that will fit your smartphone. Is that right?
Yes, either that or
Okay.
it's duct tape.
Oh, yeah. I added that to the list, by the way. I remember you said that last year. It's always good to have duct tape when we get just to the end, like what to take to the field. So duct tape is now on the list. Okay, great. I bought an adapter. I haven't used it yet, and it was about, it's just called Gary Fong tripod adapter for iPhone, and I think it was about $7. Just a little piece of plastic. Okay. Um, so unless there's questions about that, we can come back to that too at the end. We'll just move on to talking about audio and capturing audio. Oops, somebody's saying something in the chat. Sorry. Oh. Just kidding. Okay. I don't know. I didn't know what you had up your sleeve. Um, some of the audio problems that we run into is just a poor quality microphone and the type of camera or phone that you're using. So that it could just be the quality of the microphone that's built in, and you can, we'll talk about solutions in a minute, but that's what you could use an external mic for. If the subject is not close enough, so that's really like getting to know your your camera or your phone really well so that you know how close you need to be to something. And I think I probably told everybody when I was talking one-on-one with them to listen to, because there's two problems with this. When you listen to the Novik video that I make, and at the very beginning there's the person, Josh, who's a farmer that I work with, talking about collaboration and the importance of collaboration with the project, and it sounds kind of hollow, and the audio is not very very good at the very beginning, but it was a piece that and my camera just happened to be on, and it was in the back of the room, further away than it should be if you were going to be capturing audio. But I wasn't trying to capture audio; I just had it on, and he and I were just having this conversation. But what he said was so good, I wanted to use it in the piece. And then I could never recapture it. So because, and we talked about this too, is because at that point he had said something very naturally and off the cuff. I wasn't prepared for it, and he probably, if I had had a camera in front of him, he wouldn't have said it so eloquently. And when I had him try to recreate it and to script it or just have him say it over again, it never really came out as naturally again. Um, so I decided to use that piece anyway. I tried to improve it as much as I could in the editing, and I put some music behind it, but it does sound a little strange. So that's an example of like that the subject was not close enough to the camera, so I just did not get the audio that I needed, and it was too difficult for me to figure out in the editing process how to make it the quality that I needed to be. So that's one, another audio problem, and another is having too much background noise. So like on that day that I was talking about when went out to the greenhouse and did some videotaping and it was raining, it was sprinkling, but when you're inside of a greenhouse and you turn your camera on, the sprinkling all of a sudden sounds like a crazy, enormous rainstorm. So, planning is a lot of that and making sure that you're going out on days where you're not having to deal with these things. But it is a problem. These things come up, and they come up more often than you will probably anticipate. Like going out to a field day and videotaping someone, and then there's planes going on overhead, or there's tractors in the background. There's a lot of background noise. Some cameras are better at blocking out that noise than others. So just working with your camera and knowing it, so knowing what it can deal with. Let's see. So some solutions. Sorry, this is a wordy slide here, but and we talked about this in our individual sessions, is capturing video separate, or the audio separate from video, and we're talking about um, getting the audio by using video, but just doing it like instead of using a microphone or doing a voiceover, but actually just videotaping yourself talking about what it is that you want the audience to hear, but then taking the video separately. So some of that is where some people in some scenes are going to be doing audio, where they take the video and they use the audio from that, and that's all. We never see anybody in that video, and they're just overlaying it with all video and still photos. And then some people have been talking about like being out in the field, and like demonstrating something. So if you were out in the field and you wanted to demonstrate how to use a piece of equipment, it's a good idea to have that subject, that person, standing in front of the equipment and discussing it, but actually just videotaping them talking about doing it, and then taking a separate video where they're actually doing it. And then not having them, and paying attention to the length, right? So paying attention so that you have like kind of the same amount of time of the person talking about the process in the second video, the person doing the process, and then also in the second video having them um, um, show how to do the process without moving their mouth. So because we won't be able to. So a lot of times we do get this B-roll, what we call B-roll, which is the overlaying video, where they're showing how to do something, but if they're moving their mouth and there's someone talking from a different video, then I'm never going to be able to line that up because they're not going to be saying the same thing. So if you can just show what the person is doing in the second one, not having them talk or say anything. It doesn't have to be totally silent because I'll extract that. I'll just take the image. Um, but just have them do it, so that it's also it makes it so that you don't have to move around with the camera, move the camera around. It becomes shaky, and then also the person is never that's speaking is never moving back and forth and talking to the left, talking to the right, and messing up with the audio there. So we could get the one video with the person standing there talking, and we take the audio from there, and the other one is just the video of them doing the process, if that makes sense. Um, So that's one solution to dealing with audio problems. And shooting in a protected location always, so making sure that you're shooting not in a field that's right next to a busy road, not in a place where there's going to be, you're going to hear airplanes seem to be a really big problem, just not in a place where there's going to be a lot of background noise. So shooting in a protected location. And possibly, like if you are showing how to, demonstrating how to do something, how about just um, recording all the audio inside in an office somewhere and then actually shooting what they're going to be seeing out in the field. And so a lot of times being out in the field, if you're just trying to get audio, it's better to just take it inside and have someone record it that way so it sounds better and you eliminate all that background noise. Definitely working out the script in advance with people. I found that with working with the people that are going to be your talent or your subjects that you're talking to and you're interviewing with can be, some people are pretty good at just talking off the cuff. Some people are not. You definitely want to have it worked out ahead of time what the questions are going to be, and have that person have some time to think about the answers and to be able to put them into a way where they sound natural when they're talking about those, telling you what those answers are when you're doing the interview. And sometimes people really get off track, and Alex has had a lot of problems with farmers that weren't able to stay on track. They go off on tangents, so she completely scripts them. She uses like big flip chart, paper easels on easels that she holds behind the camera where they just read off of that. Some people can do that and some people cannot. So just really knowing your talent, knowing your person that you're working with, but really having quite a bit of the script worked out before you go out to do an interview would help a lot. Um, some of these are tips for interviewers, but this next one, ask the speaker to pause between ideas so that we can edit them pretty easily, cut them up. Start filming 10 seconds. That's pretty long. I would say 5 seconds before any action or someone speaking, and then having the 10 seconds afterwards so that you can so that we have that time for editing in the front and the back. And using an external microphone, which I think is on the next slide. We talk a little bit about that. Well, we don't, but it will come up in a couple minutes, a little bit of detail on external mics. Um, Movement in video, I would say that probably the rule should be to use this, to have movement in video, your movement of your camera and your video, um, as minimal as possible for you moving around with the camera. But as far as other types of movement, just considering, do you need to do it? Um, do you need to be walking around? Do you need to be um, moving the camera back and forth, and considering that B-roll? So if you're actually taking a video of someone talking about a process and then having the B-roll or the extra video to then show that process, so you don't have to be moving around at all. Panning can be very effective, but it can also be distracting if it's too fast or if it's jumpy. So having that it works best with a tripod. So if you have a tripod where you have a really nice smooth going from one side to the other of a field, and I would say doing it as very slowly is the best bet. We can speed it up in the editing process if it needs to be. Avoiding zooming. The
Lane, can
video.
I jump in for another?
Oh yeah.
Do you mind? Just another comment about panning. Beginners often, when they decide to do a pan, they just do it right off the cuff. They haven't thought through, if you're going to do a pan, what's the motivation? Where are you going to start and where are you going to stop? If you look at a lot of amateur video, the pans are random. They're just sort of cameras attached to their head and they're looking around. So again, if you decide a pan is necessary, and there can be landscapes that are useful for that technique, then you might want to just decide, think about it before you start taking the shot. Say, okay, I'm going to start here, and then there's a tractor over on the right, so I'll pan slowly over, and once the tractor gets into the scene, I'll bring it in about a third of the way to one of the PowerPoints in the picture and stop. So by planning, then you avoid this random sort of automated camera being blown by the wind.
Thank you for that. And zooming too, if you have, I think that pretty much the idea is that zooming is usually not a good thing, and that the quality becomes pretty poor at that point. And I don't think I've ever used any zooming because as I zoom, I can tell that the quality, just even in the viewfinder, is not good. And so I haven't found a good reason for doing anything like that.
And for cameras that like the flip camera, they're only using digital zoom, and so the image quality deteriorates very quickly. So I usually tell people if you have a flip camera or other fixed focus digital camera and it has a zoom, just avoid it. Like it just does, it really changes the quality of the picture. Unless a UFO was flying over, then you probably want to try to zoom in, but you don't want to ruin the quality.
Oh, I think this is actually, hold on one second. I think we're getting to your, can you see this? This is a strange, I don't know what happened here with this. Oh, it's like this. Sorry. Getting good video. This is my slide still, I think, right, Jeff? Yes. Okay. So
I
here it
think
is.
so.
We just talked about this. Avoid zooming altogether. Um, and we talked about this. And so video is more interesting when action takes place in the frame rather than the frame is moving around the action. So just letting the action happen by videotaping it rather than you moving around.
Let the story happen in front of the camera.
And this is the break the eye level habit, and I believe this is what this is getting at, is like thinking about different angles, getting creative with how you can do video and from different angles, from lower down, from higher up. Um, and also when doing interviews, rather than having a good idea, I think, is to set up your tripod off to the side with your camera and having the interview where you're just actually showing the subject, the person who's going to be talking, because you don't need to be in the video as the interviewer. But then it just gives a different angle where the person who's talking isn't looking straight into the camera. It makes them less nervous and it seems more natural for them to be talking back and forth. But really getting, I think that taking your still shots as well as your video, just getting into some different a different mindset about how what angle that should be coming from, because you can do some pretty interesting things. And this is just keeping your story firmly in mind as you shoot. So going back to those objectives, what are your objectives? What are you trying to convey in your movie, in your video? What do you, and so just making sure that you keep that in your mind the entire time as you shoot, so you don't go off on tangents, and making sure that you're um, doing what you went out to do, and being creative again. So composition, and you guys might know about this already, and this is there's a couple of videos too on the eOrganic site about this. So before you even start recording, making sure that your shot is framed nicely and pleasing to the eye. And so this is a composition that people use in photography, and so it goes on with as well as with your video, is making sure that you've lined up your subject, rather than having it just like smack dab in the middle of the viewfinder. You want to think about it with this tic-tac-toe image, and having the subject that you're looking at, the what you think is the center focus point of the image, in one of those where the intersecting lines are. So rather than having the one with the cat smack in the middle, it's much more pleasing to the eye to having it offset, either an offset to the left or the right, and either further up or down. So here's a picture of a fly and a woman doing this, set up in the viewfinder this way. And there's a video on the eOrganic site with a guy showing that, walking around from scene to scene, and showing how much more visually pleasing it is to be using this type of composition rather than rather than straight smack in the middle of the viewfinder. And so lighting can be kind of an issue. Um, and we're doing a lot of outdoor stuff too, so you needing to make the best of natural lighting. So shooting in a well-lit area, and I would say that would be for more indoors um, and making sure that your indoor spot is well lit, and avoiding. But what often when we're doing outdoor video, like an overcast day, what photographers always tell me is an overcast day is the best day. It's definitely what I've seen too when I take pictures of like variety trials and I'm taking pictures of say chicory varieties and wanting to see differences from one to the other. They never come out well at all when it's a really bright day. So it's kind of counter to intuitive than what we'd think. We would think that we would get good video on a well lit day, but really the overcast days, you get to it's those work a lot better. Um, and I think they call it the golden hour, right? So trying to do your videotape outdoors in the golden hour, which is like in the later afternoon, as well as an overcast day. Making sure there's not bright light behind the subject. There's a video also about this on your eOrganic site that you can watch, that will show you. It's a guy showing all the differences from having sun in different angles and what it does um, to the subject, and what's the best way to work with the sunnier days.
Lane,
Yeah.
and one idea, just again, if you're out in a field and you do have harsh light, and you need to cast more light on somebody's face, you can use just a large white piece of paper. If you have perhaps your easel chart out there that you're using for prompting,
Mm-hmm.
the large white piece of paper, you can tilt that and capture, sort of basically reflect a diffuse light onto a backlit or otherwise darkened area.
Great. Yeah, and one of the that video on there does talk about that too. Yeah. And so on these days, as well as and on a lot of days, people that you're videotaping, especially farmers, I find, and people that work in agriculture like to wear baseball hats and sunglasses. So making sure that these are off when you're photographing or videotaping um, subjects in the field, because they can, well, for one, with the sunglasses, you just never see their eyes, and the baseball caps will shade their face. So I always ask all of the people that I'm interviewing to take off their hats and sunglasses before I videotape them. Um, and then plan for appropriate lighting in your production plan. So your production plan is something we'll talk about next time, and that's really like getting your plan together with all the shots that you're going to need for your video, in what order you're going to do them, and how you're going to just go out and capture all of that. So making sure that you're planning correctly for this. Where are you going to do which shot? How will evening or morning light affect your video? And again, overcast days are the best. So trying to plan for that so you're not having to go back and forth from the field several times because you didn't capture what you um, intended to. Interviews, and this is one area where I added quite a bit of information that Jeff, I found that you had 10 tips to produce more professional online video interviews, and so I put a link to Jeff's information up there. And so some of those are captured here. And I think we talked about this already. So interviewers don't need to be in the shot. They can stand next to the camera. I just think that it is a good idea to kind of have the subject looking at you where you're actually talking to them so they feel more like they're in a conversation and not staring at a camera. So you have the camera on a tripod off to the side and you're talking to the person, and they're more comfortable where they're feeling like they're just having a conversation with you and answering those questions than looking at the camera. And also having the interviewee not look at the camera. I said that when and but it what something that I was reading about was that this is how they do all professional interviews, and this is what it just looks the most normal and the most natural for them to actually not be looking at the camera. And allowing the plenty of space in the shot to allow the interviewer to move around naturally, so they're not going to slip out of the shot. So you want to make sure that you're far enough back that they can move about quite a bit if they need to, but close enough still that the audio isn't compromised. Okay, and then this is your part, Jeff. So I'm going to.
I'd like to go back to the,
Oh,
could I go back to the audio? I would like to add a few more points.
oh yeah.
And that is some hints that come from my work with a lot of interviews over the years is that especially when someone else is going to be editing this, when Lane gets your video to put together, when you're interviewing someone, the best thing to do to start up when you first get the camera going is ask them to state their name and spell it. That's important because you're going to want to put up often a font, the name tag that shows up under someone who's being interviewed. And the editor may not know who that person is. So, and you might even forget who they are later on. Maybe a month later you come back, let alone the embarrassment of misspelling their name. So ask people for their name and for them to spell it and tell them to tell you on camera what their title is, if they have a title, or what farm they're working for, or what institution they represent. That'll be important. Uh, Make sure that you're actually getting audio, especially if you're using an external microphone. There's nothing worse than coming back with silent movies of your interviews. So wear headphones if your camera has a headphone output, which is something you might want to consider when you look at cameras. That allows you to monitor what's coming in from your microphone. That way you can see that in fact you are getting sound and that it's not too quiet or perhaps peaking and distorting. Especially if you're using external mics that Lane's been mentioning. External mics often mean you have several cables. You've got the cable that goes into their camera, that it may be an extender that goes out 10, 20 feet, and then your microphone's plugged into that. Every time you add a connection in an electronic situation, it doubles the chance of a bad connection. So you may not have pushed them in quite tightly enough. And so monitor if you can. If you can't, another idea is to just make sure everything's working before you do the interview. Do a little sample sound, record something, and then put your camera and rewind. That's not really the right term for digital, but rewind back a little bit. Make sure you in fact are getting sound. Um, Basically, I think that's pretty much. Oh, also, what I often tell people is that not for them to worry about if they make a mistake. You can always just say, okay, so let's try that again. So they don't feel like they have to be perfect. They also can be instructed in the front, just sort of casually in a funny way saying, a long answer is not necessarily a good answer for video. And then sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. You really, it does take practice to be able to speak in sound bites, but if you warn people in advance that, you don't have to tell me a long answer, give me the fortune cookie length version of what you just told me. And that might squeeze them down to something that's more usable.
Great, thank you. One other thing, let me the lavalier mics. I think last time, Jeff, you said that you can get those for around $30 at Radio Shack.
Yeah, you can get a reasonably good little lavalier mic and then an adapter cable that's probably 25 feet for maybe another $19.
Okay.
Somewhere I even have some of the models, but for what we're doing here, they work reasonably well.
And then wireless mics start around 150, is that right?
Yes, typically, and go up from there.
Okay. Just want to give people a idea of that. And I can give you the keyboard and mouse.
Oh, okay.
so that you can try. You want to try this?
Actually, why don't we just go ahead and I'll just tell you when to move to the next one.
Okay.
That's faster. So I'll just say next.
Okay. There you go.
Next slide, please. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to very quickly run through you the idea of what I call I've actually heard about the U.S. Army video method. When the Army has a lot of people going out shooting films in the old days, they would just say, start with these four things. The previous slide said what they were. Yeah, establish where you are, then you get a medium shot, and then a close-up and a reestablishment shot. It's just a method that helps you uh, be more organized in when you're behind your camera to make sure you get enough coverage, the kind of B-roll that you can use. So if you go to the establishment shot, you'll see basically here, oh, it tells the viewer we're out in the woods and the people are doing something. I'm not quite sure what they're doing. Let's find out by going to a medium shot and see, oh, okay. Well, now we get a sense there's people involved, and in fact, she looks like she's doing it with a pencil, but I'm not sure what it is. So let's go in for a close up. And now we get the idea of specifically what the action is. And lastly, you pull back out to reestablish the scene. So again, it's just a formula. You can use it or not. But if you're out there in the excitement of the moment, you might end up with a lot of shots that are very similar and miss some of the very important close-up information. So if I had to stress one of these, it's in addition to the establishing the scene, it's the idea of using close-ups, people's hands, what they're doing with a piece of a tractor component, a plant, whatever. Get in close to show what they're doing. Avoid, again, having the camera attached to your head and seeing everything at one distance. So that's it for the U.S. Army military method.
All right. Yeah, that is this is what I've often had experienced this, especially when I've been trying to tape, because this is something that it seems like we always are doing is taping during field days, and it's really difficult to get good video then. And so it is like your camera is attached to your head because someone is talking about something out in the field. You're looking at them, you're turning to the thing that they're talking about, you're going back up, back and forth, you're walking to whatever it is. If they're talking, say like they're talking about, I did one that was like mulching, different types of mulching for blueberries. And someone was talking in the field, and I'm showing the blueberries, and I'm showing the mulch, and it's not like the video is not much usable there. So really just taping that person, if you can get them to stand there and talk about what it is, and then taping the videotaping the mulch and the blueberries, the mulching systems, the landscape fabric and that type of thing separately to use over that other video as the B-roll works a lot better. Um, So this is the last slide is what to take to the field. So this is something to really think about and try to make sure that you have with you before you go out to do any type of videotaping, which is have your cameras. I put cameras because some people carry two, like I have carried two, which was my phone and my other camera. So whatever you're using for still shots and video, bring that out. Having your batteries charged, and it's a real bummer to get out to the field and realize that you didn't charge your batteries and you only have time. It seems like this happens very often, where you run out of battery in the field. So having extra batteries too, if you can, and having extra memory cards with you for your cameras. Bringing your tripod. I like to just the types of photos and video that I've just been accustomed to doing is a lot of photos of and video of like different varieties of a particular crop. So I like to have a measuring tape or some other item out there to look for, like use for a size reference. So you can say these plants are, you can tell how tall of a plant is just next to it can be as simple as a pencil or something. But to having like a ruler or pencil or something there for so you can see I have a size reference, because if you have just a photo of, let's say, all these little jalapeno peppers that you just harvested and they're sitting there and on a table, like have a quarter there next to it so you can have some sort of, you can tell how large or small that is. Have copies of your storyboards. So we're working on these storyboards now. and we're writing out the scripts. And so having the storyboard with you so that you make sure you're not forgetting any of the images that you need to have with you that you need to be capturing in the field, and the production plan. And that production plan is what we're going to talk about next time. So that production plan really is like your shot list and the order that you're going to do the shots. So making sure that you have that so you're capturing everything that you need to while you're out there on your videotaping day. Having that large pad of paper or a large dry erase board that you could write things on to help. It could be just like a bullet list for the people that you're interviewing, or it can be written out complete script. And again, can be, as Jeff said, it can be used as a to bounce off light too. So that's something that's good to have with you. So having an easel or a stand or something or tape to be able to use with that too. Having markers. Um, an assistant is nice to have, someone to help you out when you're out there, whether to hold pads or the paper, or just to help you out with getting things organized. A microphone, a lavalier mic or wireless mic if you plan to use one, and duct tape for all different kinds of situations, and a lens cleaning kit too. So this is just what I've come up with so far. There could be other things that I haven't thought about that could be on this, but this is a good start for sure. Um, and then we have, if you go to I can try to get to I'll go to this website, and let me see, it's eOrganic. This is where if you haven't been to it yet, I should know what it is because I just told you several times, maybe 7345, I think. So this is where you can find all the content for the video course. Here's the video course. Here we are at 1.1 through 2.9. This is what we've gone over today here, and this is the last one I didn't go over, but this is again some information from Jeff that I found online that he had come up with 27 ways to improve your online video, and we're running out of time now. I'm not going to go over them, but I think
I
it's
don't know why
really,
27.
I know, but it's definitely worth reading and looking through and like really questioning, um, you know, looking at how to improve videos that you're working on. Um, so that's just one thing that I just recently added. Um, but this is the site that you can go to get all the information, watch videos, video examples and things that are in addition to what we went over today. We'll by We're gonna next week. We're going to again work one-on-one with your storyboards, with still the goal to complete all these storyboards by the end of this class, and then in 2 weeks. Let's see, on April 17th at 1 Pacific Standard Time, we'll have our last session like this, where we're going to talk about production plans, coming up with shot lists, getting everything together for going out into the field and capturing all your video and still images. And then we're also going to talk about a few other little things that you can work with, apps on for your phone, and some online creations that you can work with that would be fun to putting together shorter videos that Jeff knows quite a bit about, and can be just something fun to do, and also really useful for capturing some unique and creative videos. So do we have, okay, he just jumped off. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we went over today? Um, I plan to put the recording, if it worked out this time, up online, so if you missed any portion of it, you can rewatch it. And then again, like I said, go back through this eOrganic site, and there's some additional information here, and maybe you just want to go over it right before you go out and start taking all your video. Want to look at some lighting. There's some different information here, where that we didn't go over, so that you can run over before going out into the field. and you'll get an email from me, and we'll schedule next week our one-on-one sessions, and otherwise we will talk to you on April 17th. Thanks everyone for being here.